Let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. Think about the last time you got a little extra money, a bonus, a side hustle payout, a tax refund. What did you do with it? Be honest. Did you buy something? New shoes, a phone upgrade, a night out, something you've been eyeing for weeks? Most people do. And there's nothing wrong with treating yourself. But here's what nobody told you. The moment you spent that money on a thing, a wealthy person somewhere used their extra money to buy back something you can never get from a store. Something you're actually running out of right now. Every single day. They bought time. And that one difference, that one quiet, invisible habit, is the reason the gap between the rich and everyone else keeps getting wider, no matter how hard the rest of us work. This isn't about hating on nice things. This isn't some stop buying coffee lecture. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to look at your wallet, your time, and your choices in a completely different way. Welcome to Quiet Wealth, where people who are serious about changing their financial story come to think differently, build slowly, and win for life. Let's get into it. The invisible currency nobody taught you. Here's something they never teach you in school. There are actually two types of currency in this world. The first one is money, dollars, numbers in your bank account, the stuff you can see and count. The second one is time. And while money is powerful, time is the only currency that is completely, brutally non-renewable. You can lose $500 and make it back. You cannot lose 5 hours of your Tuesday and get them back. They are gone forever, permanently, no exceptions. Now here's where it gets interesting. Most people are taught, from childhood, to trade their time for money. You work 8 hours, you get paid. You work more hours, you get paid more. That's the model. And on the surface, that sounds fair. But think about what's actually happening. You are converting your most precious, limited resource into your most replaceable one. You're giving away the thing you can never refill in exchange for the thing you can always earn more of. Wealthy people figure out something different. They don't just trade time for money. They use money to buy time back. They hire people to clean their homes, manage their schedules, run their errands, handle their admin work, do their laundry, cook their meals. Not because they're lazy, but because every hour they free up is an hour they can spend building more wealth, thinking, creating, or resting so they can perform at a higher level. They treat their time like it's worth $500 an hour, even when it isn't yet, because that mindset is what eventually makes it true. Meanwhile, the average person guards their dollars tightly, but spends their hours carelessly. They'll drive across town to save $8 on groceries, spending 45 minutes in traffic, and never do the math on what that trade actually cost them. They'll spend 3 hours watching random videos online, but say they don't have time to read a book or start a side business. The problem isn't laziness. The problem is that nobody taught them that time is the real currency, and that how you spend your hours is a far more important financial decision than how you spend your dollars. What buying things is really costing you. Let's talk about something called the hidden cost of ownership. When you buy a thing, a car, a designer bag, a big TV, a boat, you don't just pay the price tag. You pay with money up front, yes, but then you keep paying. You pay with maintenance costs, storage costs, insurance, repairs, the mental energy of worrying about it, the time spent taking care of it, cleaning it, fixing it when it breaks. Most people never calculate this. They see the sticker price and think that's the cost. It's not even close. Take a car as an example, and I know this one hits close to home for a lot of people. Let's say you buy a $35,000 car. That payment alone is costing you $600 a month. Add insurance, another $150 a month. Maintenance, gas, parking, conservatively another $300 a month. You're now spending over $1,000 a month on a machine that is losing value every single day. Over 5 years, that's $60,000 you've handed over to own something that's now worth maybe $15,000. And you haven't even counted the time spent at the mechanic, the time spent washing it, the mental space it takes up when something goes wrong. That car didn't just cost you $35,000. It cost you the investment returns that money could have generated, the time you spent maintaining it, and the stress you carried every time something broke. That is the true cost of a thing. Now flip that. What if instead of upgrading to a fancier car, a wealthy person hires a driver or uses a car service? Stay with me, because this sounds like a luxury move, but the logic is smarter than it appears. If that person earns $200 an hour in their business, and their commute is 1 hour each way, driving themselves to work costs them $400 a day in lost productive time. Paying $60 for a car service and working in the back seat, that's a $340 gain per day. The expensive option is actually the financially smarter one, because they're buying back 2 hours of time they can use to generate income or make decisions that multiply their wealth. The rich aren't just spending more. They're spending differently. Here's what makes this so hard to see when you're starting out. Buying things feels like progress. A new phone, a fresh outfit, a renovated apartment. These feel like wins. And culturally, socially, they look like wins. People see your new car. They don't see your investment portfolio. They see your outfit. They don't see your savings rate. So we get trapped spending money on the things that signal success instead of the things that build it. And the cruel irony is that the people who look the richest are often the ones furthest from actually being rich, while the people quietly building real wealth often look like they're doing nothing special at all. How the wealthy actually think about money. There's a mental model that rich people use that completely changes how they make decisions. It's called opportunity cost, and I know that sounds like a textbook term, so let me break it down in plain English. Every time you spend $1, you're not just spending that dollar. You're giving up everything that dollar could have become. If you spend $200 on new sneakers, you're not just spending $200. You're giving up $200 that, invested at a 10% annual return, would be worth over $500 in 10 years, over $1,300 in 20 years, and nearly $3,500 in 30. You're not spending $200. You're spending $3,500 from your future self's pocket. That's the real cost. Wealthy people are almost obsessively aware of opportunity cost. Before they spend money on anything, they ask a quiet question: what is the best possible use of this dollar right now? Sometimes the answer is still to buy the thing, because rest, enjoyment, and relationships have real value too. But the question gets asked, and asking it is enough to change the answer most of the time. Most of us never ask this question because we were never taught to. We see money as something to be spent. They see it as something to be deployed. There's also something called the pay yourself first philosophy that wealthy people live by. And it's not just about savings. It's about a mindset that says, before I pay for my lifestyle, I pay for my future. Before I pay rent, car note, groceries, and entertainment, I move money into investments, assets, and systems that will work for me while I sleep. The goal is to build what's called passive income, money that comes in without you directly exchanging your time for it. Rental income, dividend payments from stocks, royalties from a book or course, revenue from a business that runs without you in it. These are the mechanisms that let wealthy people buy back their time at scale. Here's the mindset shift that ties it all together. Poor people ask, how much does this cost? Rich people ask, what does this return? When a poor person buys a luxury watch, they see a status symbol. When a rich person buys a $10,000 course on investing or business, they see a potential $100,000 return. When a poor person pays for a gym membership they don't use, a rich person pays for a personal trainer who keeps them accountable, because they've calculated that their health directly affects their productivity and earnings. Every financial decision gets run through the filter of return on investment. Not just in dollars, but in time, energy, and freedom. The trap of lifestyle inflation. Here's a pattern that destroys more financial futures than almost anything else, and it has a name: lifestyle inflation. The moment most people earn more money, they spend more money. They get a raise, they upgrade their apartment, they land a new client, they buy a new car. Their income goes up, and almost immediately, their expenses rise to match it. The result? They feel just as broke at $100,000 a year as they did at $40,000 a year. The number changes. The feeling doesn't. And the wealth, it never actually builds. This is not a coincidence. Society is designed to trigger this cycle. The moment your income signals growth, you get bombarded with ads, with social pressure, with the subtle expectation that you should level up your lifestyle. Your friends are buying bigger houses, driving newer cars, going on fancier vacations, and suddenly, your previous life that felt comfortable starts feeling small. This is called relative deprivation, and it's one of the most expensive psychological traps in the modern world. You start measuring your life not against where you were, but against where other people appear to be. And appearances, as we've established, are almost always misleading. The wealthy handle income increases completely differently. When their income goes up, they don't immediately upgrade their lifestyle. They upgrade their assets. Extra income goes into investments, real estate, index funds, or into building businesses. Their lifestyle stays relatively stable while their balance sheet grows. This creates a widening gap over time, not just between them and others, but between the future they're building and the one most people are accidentally building. There's a concept called living below your means that sounds like sacrifice, but it's actually the opposite. It's buying freedom. Every dollar you don't spend on a depreciating lifestyle is a dollar you're sending into the future to work for you. The practical version of this looks like, every time you get a raise or extra income, give yourself a small lifestyle upgrade, maybe 10% of the increase, and send the rest directly into wealth building. Celebrate the win, but let 90% of that win compound. The gap between where rich people end up and where average people end up is not about how much they earn. It's about how little of what they earn leaks out into things that don't grow. A person earning $60,000 and saving 25% will retire wealthier than a person earning $150,000 and saving 5%. This isn't theory. The math is cold, and it doesn't care about your feelings. Time arbitrage, the strategy most people have never heard of. Let me introduce you to one of the most powerful strategies that wealthy people use, and almost nobody talks about it in simple terms. It's called time arbitrage. Arbitrage, in finance, means taking advantage of a price difference in two markets to make a profit. Time arbitrage means identifying the gap between what your time is worth and what someone else's time costs, and using that gap to multiply your output and income. Here's the simplest version. Let's say you earn $100 an hour doing the work you're best at, consulting, creating, coding, coaching, whatever your skill is. But you spend 4 hours every week doing tasks you hate and aren't very good at, bookkeeping, social media scheduling, customer emails. Those 4 hours of low-skill work are costing you $400 in potential earnings. But you could hire a virtual assistant to handle all of that for $15 an hour, $60 for 4 hours. If you use those freed up 4 hours to do your best work and earn your $100 per hour rate, you make $400 and spend $60, netting $340. You don't just save time, you convert low-value time into high-value income. That is time arbitrage. Wealthy people do this at every level. They hire accountants so they don't spend tax season drowning in paperwork. They hire property managers so they don't spend weekends handling tenant issues. They invest in software and systems that automate repetitive tasks. Every single one of these moves frees up their time, not for laziness, but for higher leverage activity. The goal is to constantly move up the food chain of how they're using their hours, until the majority of their time is spent on the things that only they can do, that generate the most value, and that they actually enjoy. That's not just a business strategy. That's a life design strategy. Now here's the honest truth for people early in their journey. You might not be at the stage where you can hire people yet, and that's completely fine, but the mindset still applies. You can start practicing time arbitrage by being ruthlessly honest about how you spend your hours. What are the high-value activities in your life that you keep avoiding because you're stuck in low-value ones? Maybe you keep saying you want to start a business, but you're spending 15 hours a week watching content that doesn't grow you. Maybe you want to get healthy, but you haven't cut the 2 hours of scrolling that could be a workout and a meal prep session. You don't need money to start thinking about time like the wealthy do. You just need to start seeing it as the asset it is. Assets versus liabilities, the only framework you need. This concept was made famous by Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And even though it sounds basic, most people still don't actually live by it. Here it is. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. That's it. That's the whole framework. And the goal of the wealthy is to spend their money acquiring assets, not liabilities. Simple to say. Surprisingly hard to do in a world designed to sell you liabilities disguised as status symbols. Your house, and I know this one is controversial, is actually a liability for most people. It doesn't generate income. It costs you mortgage payments, maintenance, property taxes, and insurance every single month. It might appreciate in value over time, which is great, but while you're living in it, money flows out of your pocket, not in. A wealthy person might own multiple properties, but they rent them out. Those rental properties generate income every month. They're assets. The wealthy person might rent the home they actually live in, because renting, in some markets, is actually cheaper than owning, and that frees up capital to deploy into actual income-generating assets. Again, not what it looks like from the outside. Your car, definitely a liability. It loses value every year, costs money to run, and generates zero income. A wealthy person might own a car, but some of the wealthiest people in the world drive ordinary, modest vehicles because they don't see cars as a wealth statement. They see them as a transportation tool, and they refuse to spend wealth-building capital on a depreciating machine. Now, some wealthy people do drive exotic cars, but only after their assets generate enough passive income to cover those costs without touching their core wealth. The car is paid for by their money working, not by their hours working. Here's the empowering side of this framework. Assets can be small at the start. A dividend-paying stock. A simple blog that earns ad revenue. A course you built once that sells repeatedly. A small piece of real estate with a tenant. These things don't require millions to start. They require a mindset shift. Before I buy another liability, can I acquire an asset first? Can I put something in my life that pays me before I buy another thing that costs me? That question, asked consistently, over years, is how ordinary income people build extraordinary wealth. It's slow at first, then it compounds. And one day you look back and realize that the small assets you started buying years ago have turned into something that makes your old salary look like pocket change. The psychology of spending. Understanding money is only half the battle. The harder half is understanding yourself. Specifically, why smart people consistently make financially self-destructive choices even when they know better. The answer lives in psychology, and it's fascinating. The human brain was not built for modern financial decisions. It was built to respond to immediate rewards and avoid immediate threats. Saving money for 30 years offers no immediate reward. Buying a new phone gives you dopamine right now. From your brain's perspective, the phone wins every time, unless you consciously override the circuitry. There's something called the pain of paying. Researchers have found that spending cash literally activates the brain's pain centers. This is why credit cards are so dangerous. When you tap a card, there's no pain. The money doesn't feel real. This is not an accident. Credit card companies know exactly what they're doing. They've engineered the spending experience to minimize the psychological friction between you and a purchase, because your pain response is the only thing slowing them down. And it works beautifully for them. People spend an average of 12 to 18% more when using cards versus cash. That's not a minor difference. That's the difference between breaking even and going into debt. There's also the powerful force of social comparison. Humans are wired to benchmark themselves against their immediate social group. When everyone around you is upgrading their lifestyle, your brain signals danger. Not financial danger, but social danger. The fear of being seen as less successful, less valuable, less desirable. This is primal. It goes deeper than logic. And it's why people buy things they can't afford with money. They don't have to impress people they don't even like. Not because they're stupid, but because evolution programmed us to care deeply about social standing. The wealthy hack this by surrounding themselves with people who celebrate net worth, not net looks. Your social circle quietly sets the standard you unconsciously reach for. The fix for all of this is not willpower. Willpower is a terrible financial strategy because it runs out. The fix is environment design. Make good financial choices the path of least resistance. Set up automatic investments so the money is gone before you can spend it. Delete shopping apps from your phone. Unfollow accounts that make you feel poor or trigger spending. Move your savings to a separate bank that takes 2 days to transfer from So impulse buying from that account is physically inconvenient. The goal is to make the decision once, to set up the system, and then let the system do the hard work so you don't have to fight your own brain every day. That's what the wealthy do. They don't resist temptation with gritted teeth. They build environments where temptation rarely shows up. How to start buying time at any income level. Everything we've talked about so far might sound like it applies only to people who already have money. But that's exactly the lie that keeps the cycle going. You don't need to be rich to start thinking like someone who is. You need to start making different choices with whatever resources you have right now. Because those choices, stacked over time, are what create wealth in the first place. The rich didn't start out rich. They started out making different decisions with modest resources, and the decisions compounded. The first move is to audit your time before you audit your finances. Take 1 week and track, honestly, where hours go. Not what you think you do, what you actually do. Most people are genuinely shocked by this exercise. They discover they're spending 20 to 30 hours a week on activities that generate nothing. No joy, no growth, no income, no relationships. Those hours are not rest. They're waste. And until you see it clearly, you can't change it. The question to ask for every recurring activity in your week is this. Does this make me money, grow me as a person, bring me genuine joy, or strengthen a relationship I care about? If it doesn't hit at least one of those, it's costing you something precious and giving you nothing real in return. The second move is to start redirecting a small amount of money from things to time and assets. You don't need to go from zero to hero overnight. Start with one decision. Instead of the $80 dinner out this weekend, put $50 into an index fund and spend $30 on a book by someone who built the kind of life you want. Instead of the $200 outfit, use $150 to take an online course in a skill that can increase your income. Instead of financing a new car, keep the one you have and put the would-be car payment into an investment account every month. These are not dramatic sacrifices. They are small redirections that, if sustained for 5 to 10 years, produce radically different financial outcomes. That's not motivation talk. That's mathematics. The final move, and this is the one that ties everything together, is to start building even one small asset this year. Just one. It doesn't have to be big. Start a YouTube channel about something you know. Write an ebook. Buy one share of a dividend-paying stock. Start a small online resale business. Rent out a room on Airbnb. The point is not the immediate income. The point is the shift in identity. Once you have something that earns money without you actively working every hour it's earning, you understand the game differently. You stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like an owner. And that shift from worker mindset to owner mindset is the real moment your financial life turns a corner. Not the day you make your first million. The day you start thinking like someone who will. Let me bring this home with the simplest version of everything we just covered. Poor people trade their time for money, then spend that money on things that feel good right now. Wealthy people trade their money for time, then use that time to build things that pay them later. One cycle shrinks over the years. The other grows. And what separates them isn't talent, luck, or a trust fund. It's a set of habits, mindsets, and decisions that anyone can start making, starting today. You're not behind. You're just now seeing the map. And that changes everything. Don't waste another year trading your best hours for things that don't last. Start buying time.